thing on Indiana is that people tend to forget that this is a Democrat Senate seat from by that is going to go Republican with Dan Coates, and it's never been on anyone's list. Coates has been ahead and growing almost from day one, and I think that that's going to add additional pressure on the Democrats on those House seats that Don mentioned. That and very aggressive, almost personal stake in the game for Governor Daniels. I think Indiana is going to be an early indicator of just how deep this thing could go.
Another, if Rubio loses or Rand Paul loses, if you're a Republican, you probably ought to go to bed because there's just no hope of us taking over the Senate if that happens. I don't think either will happen. If Christine O'Donnell wins, you should stay up until Hawaii comes in.
Maybe Maxine Waters and Pelosi could be in trouble. But no, and I think, there's those two returns, Kentucky and Florida, are going to be very encouraging, I think, for conservatives in the Senate. But underneath them, there are a number of House races that are really going to be a test of how deep is the rejection of the Obama regime and its agenda. Rand Paul is now polling very, very well and is likely to win, but there are several House seats in Kentucky, Ben Chandler in particular, that are in play. And Chandler is a Democrat out of the Lexington area that should never even be considered on a vulnerable list, but he's in trouble. And in Florida, of course, I think Rubio is looking very strong, but I think conservatives around the country are more interested in how badly that leftist windbag Alan Grayson gets beat. That's going to be a sweet victory because he's been so vitriolic, so underhanded and nasty.
I wouldn't count Christine O'Donnell totally out. Her opponent has canceled the last two debates, doesn't want to appear with her. She's picked up 10 points in the last 10 days. She's still 10 points down. She was kneecapped coming out of the gate by establishment Republican figures. It's unfortunate. If she comes within 2 or 3 points of winning, I think those people are going to have a lot of explaining to do.
No, I agree with you. And I think the other good instructive thing about Delaware, at the last 2 weeks of this campaign, all Democratic candidates had to talk about were personal attack slurs, and we're finding now many of them simply made up out of whole cloth, and that was their whole campaign, was to destroy character assassination of the Republican opponent. What we're seeing in a number of places is that that's backfired. It clearly backfired in Kentucky to the benefit of the target, Rand Paul. It's benefiting, I think, to Keith Fimian here in Northern Virginia against the really thuggish tactics of Jerry Connolly and his allies. So it's very possible that those last-minute slurs that were put out about Christine O'Donnell actually accrued to her benefit.
Well, when you have the Washington Post come out and say a Democrat's ads are absurd, they've really got to be bad.
True. Yep.
What about the regional resurgence? You mentioned the South.
Well, I think the South, everything I've seen on the regional breakdowns are that in the South, Democrats are going to be almost an endangered species. But what I find more interesting is the really rapid increase that appears to be taking place in the Midwest, the industrial belt, and even the Northeast. So I think that that for me says that it is a national mood that is signaling a total rejection of this administration and its policies.
And some states are reverting to form, like Colorado, which will close at 9 Eastern Time.
Right.
If Senator Buck defeats the incumbent, that means we have a chance to take over the Senate. Probably come down to Alaska.
Right.
What are your overall predictions as far as the bottom line?
Don?
I'd say 50 plus House seats and 8 Senate seats.
I agree with the 8 Senate. And I think 50 is a safe, Don, you're always playing it so safe here.
I'm a conservative.
No, I think the gains in the House, I think, are going to be a floor of 60 and could go much higher.